To call this meeting to order, 6:33 p.m. on Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. Present, we have myself, Israel Rivera, and my committee member, Councilor Givner. Online, we have present with us Councilor Linda Vacant, Councilor Jose Maldonado Velez, Councilor PUELLO, and our Director of I'm sorry, I'm a little too close to the microphone. Our Director of Public Health, Sean Gonzalez. Let me see if there's from my view, I don't see anyone else. Jeff, if you see anyone else, feel free to let me know if I missed anybody. Oh, we have from the City Solicitor's Office, Mike Bissonette too as well. So, for the purpose of the meeting, I would like to entertain a motion for the first item.
Motion to take up item 1.
Second the motion to take up item 1. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 1 was filed by Councilor Maldonado Velez. The item reads, ordered that a communication is sent to the council as to when the rubbish at 27 Cabot Street will be cleaned up. I believe Sean Gonzalez is here for this particular order. I'll give Jose a quick time to, I guess, expand on the order if he would like, and then we'll pass it over to Sean so that way he can elaborate on where things are. Councilor Maldonado Velez.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I know item 2 also had 27 Cabot Street listed on there, and I did drive by, and it does look like it's picked up. I would love, any other updates as well that we should know of. But yeah, I know that it was picked up or it was cleaned up. I was driving by there the other day.
So before you chime in, Sean, do we want to take it up as a package, item 1 and 2? Councilor Givner?
Item 1 and 2?
Yep.
We need to. Motion to take up items 1 and 2 as a package.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So item 2 reads that ordered, this was filed by Councilor JOURDAIN and PUELLO, ordered that Mayor and Building Department, Board of Health, Law Department, please provide the City Council with a status report on the demolition on resolution of dangerousness abandoned building at 2729 Cabot Street and incorporating 510 South Bridge Street, parcel ID at 031-01014, owned by Next Realty Inc. with corporate president Shakeel Ahmed, but of 10 a dangerous debris. Patriot Parkway in Weymouth, Mass. Fencing is no longer safely enclosing the property, and it has a dangerous debris field and is an attractive nuisance for children. According to my records, there was a fire there in September 21 and another fire in 22 of April. It has been vacant from even before these fires. Please report if the owner is paying vacant building fee and when the building is going to be demolished, since it seems inconceivable that it will be restored. I would say, not Councilor Sean, if you could address item 1 briefly, because there's 2 has some of 1 and then another one incorporated in it, and then when you're done there, I will allow Councilor PUELLO to kind of speak on that if he wanted to, because he's a co-filer on this order, and then you can address in that order. But Sean, if you would like.
Good evening, everyone. Sean Gonzalez, City of Holyoke Board of Health. The short answer on item 1 is that the vast majority of the debris has been cleared. A little history on that and some of the explanation of why the process was slower than desirable. When that building caught fire in April of 22, the city had to take part of it down. It was deemed to be immediately unsafe, and there wasn't any owner or manager present to take immediate action. So the city had that portion of the building brought down. Because there was not time to do an environmental review, obviously this was a fire-related emergency. There was no ability to go in there and verify the status of lead or asbestos. The DEP considers that pile of debris to be asbestos contaminated. And so it had to be disposed of by someone who's a licensed asbestos abatement. It's all considered to be hazardous waste. And so that has been removed. The portion of the building that is newly exposed, where that side, that section of the building had been removed, has now been cinder blocked in and mortared in, so that's sealed. And that was hauled away. The city has all of the necessary abatement paperwork. The DEP has a plan that they've accepted, and that part is wrapped. The last remaining section, you may see some additional debris there over the course of this week and maybe into next week. They're demolishing the elevator stack in the rear of the building. That's not hazardous waste. That can be disposed of as demolition debris. And so they got rid of that main portion that had been taken down, and that was hauled away, and that is closed out, and now they're handling the remaining portion, which is at this point a freestanding, it looks like a tower, and it was an elevator shaft. That's coming down now.
So just in review, for the most part, a lot of the waste has been cleaned up. What's left is pretty much just the elevator shaft, and it's been cleaned up in phases, it sounds like, right?
That's correct.
Thank you. Any questions before I give the floor to Councilor Puello? I hear no questions. So, Councilor Puello, would you like to kind of speak on item 2? I mean, you can address anything that has to do with Cabot 27 too as well, but I think specifically to the 510 South Bridge Street parcel.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just really thankful for Sean, really, for all the work he's done. And I really mean that, just to emphasize, there's not just with this order, but just with a couple other ones too that he's filed, or that I filed, and he's been on top of that, the Board of Health and folks in zoning. So I really appreciate Devin passing in zoning. So just thank you very much for taking care of all that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Sean, I guess you could proceed with the 510.
Thank you, Councilor Puello. I appreciate that. So this is a little bit of a winding road as this larger question. So as of today, aside from the elevator stack, there are no immediate plans to demolish the remaining portion of the building. There is the large main portion of the building that you can see from the street, and then if you were to drive around to the dead end, we'll call it a paper road, that is the rest of South Bridge. In the back, there is a lower red brick portion. 27 and 29 Cabot are a name that people commonly use for this structure, but 510 South Bridge is the assessed address. It's all one parcel, all one building. It's all one owner as well. It's all uniform. Oh, thank you, Jeffrey. I very much appreciate you sharing these pictures. So the Holyoke Fire Department was kind enough today to make use of a drone that they have at their disposal, and they were able to take some aerial shots of this building. This main shot that you see here is from the rear of the portion from a vacant lot. And you can see the elevator stack on the left-hand side of the screen. You see that sort of tall piece there. That's exactly, thank you, Jeffrey. That's the stack, and that is what is the final piece of the active demolition. As for the rest of the building, we are still attempting to determine whether or not there's viability. There have been several fires there. That is true. Some of the fires have been relegated to specific portions of the building. The most recent large fire was relegated to one end of the building, and that piece has been removed. So what you're seeing in this picture here is a top-down view of the roof, and you're going to see on the right-hand side of the roof, in that top right corner here, closest to the road, this is the area of concern. There's a little bit of an opening that you can see where it looks as if the roof material had been peeled back, and that was done as part of putting out the fire and some of the remediation that was done on the building. And that's our major area of concern. There's a smaller area on the lower portion of the building to the left, that lower roof that you can see sort of below the elevator stack, right where the cursor is. Yeah, that area there, there may be some difficulties there with the roof, but other than that, there does not appear to be anything catastrophic. There are some pictures, if you could scroll back down, Jeffrey, to those pictures of the rear of the building. You can see some partial pieces of porch there, and there are some exposed beam pockets on the left side of the building. And that's not great, but these are things that are resolvable. The position of that building, it is on a freestanding lot. There is a large vacant lot behind it, and then there are several city-owned lots that are along South Bridge and Crescent Street behind it. And there's a feeling internally in the city that if those parcels were packaged together, that there's an opportunity there for significant development. And really the job is, we need to determine whether or not what's left is still viable. There's not a definite answer at this point, and we have an engineer who's actively engaged on the job, who's managing the demolition that's currently happening. Whether or not we engage further efforts to get have a structural engineer go inside and make a determination is a decision that the city needs to make internally. But we're considering that option. There is a significant tax balance on this property. It's about, I have that paperwork in front of me. Give me one moment. It was about $40,000 to the city as of this month. It also has liens shared between the building department and the Board of Health that amount to another $40,000. And then the cost of the demolition is going to round out to be about $200,000. So should the city pursue a tax taking, we certainly have the ammunition. There's plenty here to determine, to show to the land court that this building is a public safety nuisance, essentially, and that lends to the process being accelerated in the land court. And that may be, that is a process that we are pursuing. The city can take that all the way up to judgment without actually having the taking happen. So we can manage some of the concern about the building structure, where we move through the process, but we don't necessarily take the building before we're ready. And separately, there have been some overtures made to the Treasurer's Department that there is interest in purchasing this property. In August, mid-August, there was a meeting in the mayor's office with several city departments. There is a organization from the eastern part of the state that came in person to the mayor's office with one of the listed members of Next Realty LLC, which is the owner of this building. And they sort of made a presentation to the city employees and the mayor about possibly cleaning up this building and converting it into another use. About a week later, we got word back from the person who was looking to develop the property, who was not necessarily the owner, that there are some internal disputes among the actual listed owners that are Next Realty, and that has sort of slowed the potential development down. But then an email was received by the Treasurer's office on September 25th, just a few days ago, that developer is looking for essentially a total of all debts owed to the city, as they are very, very much interested in purchasing this building. So there are a couple lines of activity going on here, but demolition is a possibility that we may need to take if these other avenues don't pan out.
Before I open it up, Councilor Puello, any responses to any of this as a maker of the order?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. I did read some of this stuff over. I did get some of it provided before, but I just really want to emphasize, just thank you to the Board of Health so much. I mean, whatever Sean needs to make stuff work, and we gotta give it to him. Like they do so much. Just really, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else? I mean, on the committee first, and then any other councilors online? If no, I think for me, yes, I'm with tabling for following up. I think, or maybe not. Maybe we can comply with and then just refile it again just to check in. I think for me, one of the main things that is a little concerning to me is what you mentioned with the roof. In the meantime, because it's owned by someone that is literally probably not paying their taxes, and it seems that they've abandoned the property. sounds like we're not doing anything to kind of like, we don't have any plans to make sure that that roof is secure in case something were to happen with regards to like a windstorm or like a snowstorm or something like that. And I say this because in the flats, we still have like 3 buildings that are still shut down from something that happened. And I know it was a freak accident, not a freak accident, but like a freak storm, where we had like a small, I don't remember the word, it's not an actual tornado, but like,
A microburst.
Microburst, yeah. And it ripped off the roof from the 2 buildings, almost 3 buildings in the flats that actually had a stable roof. That thing in the picture does not look stable at all. And it would kind of suck if something blew off and someone got hurt or a car got impacted by it. So I think for me is everything else after being hurt is like everything else sounds like it's under control except for that little roof piece right there. So I think that's something for us to keep an eye on. It's not my job in a sense. It's more your job, Sean. But like, I guess we'll follow up with you in a couple months just to see where that's at, particularly. And Councilor Puello, if you could, and not just you, I'll reach out to Councilor Rivera. Oh, she's here actually too, because it's Ward 1 and Ward 2 borderline technically. If you guys could kind of like stay on that, so that way we make sure we file it again and keep it in the public safety. Maybe we could keep it tabled.
We can table it for follow-up.
Okay, we'll table it for follow-up. Thank you again, Sean, for the work you did on this. Very good explanation, great presentation, and thank you for the drone that the fire department has for the pictures.
Do we want to have item 1 complied with?
Yes.
Okay, motion that item 1 be complied with.
Second. All in favor?
Okay. Motion that item 2 be tabled for follow-up.
Second. All in favor?
Okay.
Thank you.
You want to motion to take up item 4 out of order?
Hold on a second. I think, yeah, sure, why not, since he's here.
Since he's here. Okay. Motion to take up item 4 out of order.
Second. All in favor?
Okay.
Aye. Item 4 was filed by myself, Councilor Israel Rivera. Weird. The order reads that representative of Cataldo Ambulance Service Company be asked to come into public safety and share any information or data they have collected in relation to overdoses within the city of Holyoke. Feel free to come in and sit in one of the chairs. There's a button that says push. So I think you just push.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, cool. I like trinkets. So do you have a presentation that will be on Zoom? No, right? It's just, all right, perfect. Thank you.
No. That is why I brought that along. I did email the presentation to you along with a spreadsheet that we send normally monthly to you and the mayor.
Yeah. All right. So I'll see if Jeff, if you can, or if you have the time to pull it up, that'd be great. If you can't, I totally get it too. It's no issue.
But I did provide the handouts so that we can at least talk through this.
And then real quick for the people that are watching on TV and anyone that probably has a question as to why I would probably file an order similar to this is one, there are a variety of different issues that we all know that are going on throughout the city of Holyoke, especially around overdoses and substance abuse issues and homelessness. So in my mind, taking this approach, having an understanding of the data that's being put out, specifically with the people that are providing the direct services, I think it's poignant for us to kind of like highlight this data, pay attention to the data, and understand the trends. Kind of makes sense, I think, in my mind. But thank you for being here with us.
Thanks. We really appreciate the voice. For a long time, we've been watching this. Our management group locally has been here for 7 years. A lot of this base data has not changed over that 7 years. So even though we recognize that the data we're going to give you is just a piece of the puzzle, a little slice of the pie, because it's only from our perspective, since we do see that consistency over the last 7 years, I think that the numbers tend to gain validity every month that we provide these numbers. And, you know, we see the same average age, for example, and we see the same racial breakdown. So I think, and maybe more importantly, we see the same geography. We see the same neighborhoods. We see the same issues month to month. So I think we've gained, you know, that knowledge, and we can kind of feel good about some of the data that we produce. The first slide is residents, and this is truthfully the first surprise that I think some of us might have, is that out of the 209 incidences that we tracked over the last 9 months, 89 of the 209 we could confirm as Holyoke residents. That was the only surprise that we found doing this data. We knew anecdotally that a lot of the folks that we encounter identify as being from surrounding communities, but we didn't have an idea of what the percentage was until we broke these down. So I think that's eye-opening to a certain degree. And I think, you know, obviously we knew Springfield and Chicopee were going to come in close seconds. But it's worth noting that many of the folks that we transport, we can identify some of their demographics. The source of our information is their health insurance. That's the only thing that's really concrete, and many of them don't have health insurance. So any information that we get from somebody that's anecdotal, we did not include in this, or we'll identify as other or unknown. So that first slide is detailing that. The second slide that we talk about is the Narcan administration. And again, you know, this is consistent with what we've seen over the years. Where police are normally first on scene because they get the original 911 call and they activate their response a minute or two ahead of us, and very often they're in the neighborhood, so they get there first. You know, follow closely behind our arrival, then bystanders, and then fire.
Is that 20% for bystanders?
20% for bystanders.
Kudos to you, 110%.
Yeah, so one of the things that, you know, makes this data so skewed is the prevalence of Narcan in the community. Mm-hmm. So we may get called for an overdose at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and anecdotally, again, family will say that's the second time they've overdosed today, or that's the third time they've overdosed today. Where we only register one, that was their third of the day. And that is part of the danger of the Narcan is, you know, the user wakes up, wants to get high again. Mm-hmm. And eventually, if that repeats itself over and over again, there is going to be an overdose. And oftentimes that's when it results in a fatality. Yep. So again, no surprise on that one. The next is age distribution of the patients that we transport. Again, no surprise, the average age is 42.3. When we originally did this data, it did surprise us because we thought that number would be younger. And it really highlights the point of where do we educate and who do we educate about the dangers of this drug. Because many assume it's a young person's problem. It certainly is eventually, but when we see the overdoses, it's not the kids, it's not the teenagers, it's people in their 40s on average. Next, gender. Again, no surprise, and this is also backed up statewide and nationally. It is a male drug, by and large. If females are using it, they're using it better and more wisely. But overdose data nationwide is consistent with males in the 80s, females 20% or lower.
Does the data account for non-gender conforming?
No.
Because you can't ask that, right?
No.
Yeah,
No.
right. That makes sense.
You know, we only go by what the state puts out
Yep.
for health insurance questions.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this data is pulled not only from our personal care report, but from the hospital's reporting.
Yeah, yeah.
So, because we're limited, the hospital can ask a few more questions. And again, most of this is taken from the patient's health insurance directly, if we can source it. And that's it. That is the next slide. So this is one of the first indicators of, you know, who we're talking about. When we look at less than 3% of these occurrences have personal or private insurance, which would indicate employment. And 76% is a public insurer, which would indicate either somebody elderly or somebody unemployed or underemployed or not employed at all. And unknown, again, accounts for those people that we could not find any information or did not have any insurance at all. The next is marital status, and no surprise that people that have addiction problems have trouble developing relationships. They have trouble following through on commitments, which would make divorce prevalent, and being single. Again, 27% we couldn't identify because either they refused to answer the question or we were unable to source that information. Ethnicity, and this pertains to the city of Holyoke only, and this has been a fairly consistent number as well, where the Hispanic population generally runs about 60% of the overdoses in the city of Holyoke that we track, 25% Caucasian, African Americans usually around 5%. This ended up a little lower than we would expect, and then unknowns are really represented most time by those that were fatal upon our arrival. Unemployment status is similar to that of marital status. Those addicted find it difficult to maintain employment and end up on the street with a lot of time on their hands, and you know, oftentimes end up in the back of our ambulance. So from a data standpoint, those are the points that we track on a regular basis. You know, it's obviously a problem, not a Holyoke problem. It's a big problem. Over 110,000 people died of overdoses in the United States last year. 2,300 in Massachusetts, and according to the DPH, 32 in Holyoke in 2022. So, you know, this is a huge issue that we deal with on a daily basis, and it takes its toll on our crews. It's emotional. Oftentimes when you see the same person repeatedly, we know them by name, they know us. It's a sad story, and in the end, the most emotional impact that our crews feel is when we see the same families impacted, we see the same brothers on scene, we see the same mothers, kids. It's a serious issue that, you know, we kind of feel helpless to do anything about. So we were thrilled to death when Councilor Rivera and Mayor Garcia asked us to take a deeper look at what's going on here. We'd love to be part of any solution that the city determines that we should go for. So thank you.
Thank you. This is a pretty well thorough presentation. I think I guess I'll open the floor to Councilor Givner if she has any questions, and then to other councilors, and then I'll comment my questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was curious about the other. First, I would just ask that it'd be great if you could share these slides with Jeffrey so that he can send them out to the council because they're really great.
I did send an electronic copy to the councilor, Chairman, so he can share that.
I'll do that.
And then for the other information that came with item 4 that has like dates and are these from this 209, or are these the specific?
That's actually what I got, and I forwarded.
Yes, that is that detail.
Wow.
That's what I got. I don't think I got.
Really detailed.
I don't think I got this slideshow.
Yeah. Well, it's a different tab. If
Okay, I'll check on it.
So yeah, that's really the breakdown of that detail, the charts. We tried to summarize them because that's cumbersome.
Yeah, I know.
That makes
so we
sense,
tried
too.
to put the charts together so it's easy to take a look at that.
And then I would just say thanks for coming in and sharing this. It's very sad, and I'm hoping we can get to a point where we can do more about it. I know there's been a lot of funding distributed from some lawsuits, and I know that there's work on the state level and of course the city level to start implementing solutions, but yeah, it's quite the battle.
For sure.
Thank you, Councilor Givner. Anybody, any other councilors that would like to address or have any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Or Councilor Maldonado Velez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now I guess more of statements. First, thank you for coming down to through the chair to the representative of Cataldo. Sorry, I didn't get your name. But
Frank.
Yeah, thank you for getting this information. I think there's going to be a later order around Department of Community Responder Model. I know in tomorrow's joint school committee meeting, one of the school committee members put in an order around issues around drug use and substance abuse, and particularly around the schools and whatnot. It's a real issue that we need to face, and I don't think there is an easy solution, but at least we know and we see the numbers that it's a real problem. I do want to say, particularly in Holyoke, I just want to give a shout out to certain organizations like Tapestry, Holyoke Health Center, just because I see the number 53 bystanders. So the way I see that is like these are community members that either have gotten trained in Narcan or have family members or they went to CVS and got Narcan. And the more people in our community that we can equip with this skill and knowledge on how to deal with overdoses, I think the better off we'll be in the community to actually get to the next point. So yeah, I think this is a good data set to have as we really try to find what the solutions will be to fix this. Because to your point earlier, this is not just a Holyoke problem. This is a national crisis that we have to deal with. So I don't think it's just going to be Holyoke that needs to solve it. But if we can at least put our information out there as much as we can, and hopefully we will get a solution eventually. We see it every day. I work down on Main Street, so we see a lot of different things all the time, and these are people that have gone through some, lack of better words, some crap in their life, whether abuse, whether domestic violence, and they have turned to drugs, or maybe they were prescribed certain drugs during operations and now they are dependent on them. So there's so many different reasons as to why people got there today. So I look forward to working with you further to try to find the best solution and try to make our community better. So thank you for coming down and sharing all this information with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Vacant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to jump in to thank these folks for this comprehensive report, and also to let you know as chair that since 2015, I do have some historical data going through 2019 from our police department. It's not quite as detailed as this, but it certainly has shown a trend of increasing overdoses over the years. And in the past, I did attend a meeting where we were trying to get our arms around the whole idea that people are coming to our city for basically one-stop shopping and ODing in our city, and that the majority of them aren't from Holyoke. So we really have, as has already been mentioned, a complicated and multifaceted problem here. But I think a lot of it is fueled by all of the drug sales that are still going on in our community. Although I applaud all the folks that have been intervening, particularly recently, and shutting some of the dealers down. So I think there's a lot of efforts going on, but to your points made by members of the group, it's multifaceted and it takes every department. And I believe the best approach that we've had so far is our police working hand in hand with our service providers and trying to reach out with community resources as well as enforcement for the safety issues. So I want to thank you. This is really bringing us up to date today.
Thank you, Councilor Vacant. Councilor Maldonado Velez, is that your hand up for a second time? No? You just put it down? Are you on mute?
Okay, this is a point of information. Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the public, there's Narcan trainings happening through our city. I know at Enlace de Familias we have one coming up. It's a little way off, but it is December 7th at 10 a.m. put on by Tapestry. But Tapestry, I know every Wednesday from 10 to 12 down Wildflower Alliance, they do Narcan distribution. And CVS, I believe, has Narcan as well now. We just ask that if you are going to get buy Narcan through the pharmacy, just get a quick training from the pharmacist, just to make sure that we know how to do it. I think there was something that was said earlier where a person can OD, get Narcan, can come back, and then they just want to use again. So like making sure that you understand what that means and whatnot. So there are some resources out there in our community to make sure that we are helping those people that are ODing and using drugs. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully it'll get better sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Maldonado Velez. Councilor Givner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that these numbers do highlight the populations that are still reachable. I mean, everyone can be educated, but I think, knowing that it's our younger population that's not getting involved, the best time is at the beginning to teach kids about the dangers of the use and, what things are, teaching them about trainings, so they can help members of their community, because there's a really good chance that they have family members affected. There's a lot of stigma around issues, mental health, drug use, and it's important that we teach our younger folks, what's going on so that they can face things head on and so that they know what to avoid. So, again, I think the age statistics are very helpful.
Yeah, if I could, I agree with you 100%. And this is something that we've tried to, shout at the top of the mountain. It's, go after the kids, because when, you're 25 or 30 or older and you've fallen into this trap, it's so difficult to get out of it. So, not getting in it is obviously the best route to go. And education around the contents of these drugs. If you hear what the medical examiner says about the fatal doses, very often heroin overdoses don't even contain heroin. They're a combination of fentanyl and tranquilizer, and it needs to get out there that they're playing with fire. And 5 years ago, it was we all panicked when we heard the word fentanyl. All of us in public safety were panicked that, oh my God, that one guy had fentanyl on him. Now it's an anomaly when they don't. So it's going downhill quickly, and these things are getting more dangerous, by the day. So getting out and talking to those kids and talk about what is actually in this stuff that you're injecting into your bloodstream is important. You hate to say scare them, but at least give them reality.
Thank you. So for me, I think in listening to the presentation and looking at some of the slides and the data and the numbers, I think all the information is valuable. I think it allows for the city and the community to kind of position itself in a way where we could actually have a foundation as to understand what is kind of happening in the community. Like we mentioned, age demographics, ethnicity demographics, and regions. Like where are people coming from? So all this kind of provides an opportunity for whenever we do have someone in a role that can actually help apply for more grants and apply for other opportunities to help us kind of mitigate some of the issues that we have. up front. Historically, as shown on the slides, historically, people of color have kind of suffered the most from substance abuse, whether it was the crack epidemic in the 80s, the heroin epidemic, and now it's fentanyl, right? But the issue now that it's kind of like coming into communities all over the country, and because of this, it's gotten a tremendous more spotlight, and as it should. It should have been having the spotlight decades ago. But I think for me, what speaks loudly now is that we have organizations trying to decriminalize and trying to destigmatize the ideology of what it is to be a user, right? And working towards that and trying to have these conversations on how best we can best present this. I filed a couple orders myself around developing an office of returning citizens, and as well co-filed with Councilor MALDONADO VELEZ with regards to the community responder model, not because I don't believe in what the police are doing with regards to trying to fight the fight that they're fighting, but that they need another asset or another ally that can come to the table with different weapons, right?
Well, yeah, and I think you hit on a couple of valid points there. Obviously, it does impact minority communities more, and we obviously see that here, and there is an economic factor to this. There's no debate about that.
Right.
But you're also right about it going into other communities. 69% of the people that died of overdoses nationally were white males, non-Hispanic males.
In the other communities.
And across the nation.
Right.
So I do think, whether it's right or wrong, these are the things that bring it to everybody's dinner table.
Right.
This is what gets everybody talking about it, that it's everybody. Every family that I know has been impacted this one way or another.
Regardless.
And, if this issue isn't something that can consolidate us all to fight to fix, I don't know what it is.
But the thing is, too, that there's layers to this, and this is what I think that I'm glad to serve on this committee, and I'm glad to be able to be on the council to be able to try to navigate the layers, because there are community partnerships and there are existing agencies that are doing some of the work, but there has to be a point where there is accountability for the results that's being put into the work, right? If 7 years go in and the trends continue to be in the same direction, then we need to do something different.
Yeah, I attended at the mayor's request the recovery ceremony earlier in the month, and I counted 14 different organizations in Veterans Park that have overlapping chores and duties.
Right.
We deal with all of them, all doing a great job. But there's help there. There's safety nets there. But how are we going to make it more effective?
There's
the key.
Right.
There's a lot
making
of
the
people out there
connection.
working.
Right.
But we got to start talking more to each other. Maybe get less protective of our own little neighborhood and work together.
That's exactly it. All right. I appreciate your time and thank you. If no other councilors have anything else to say, I think we can move forward with.
I would make one more statement. If there's anything else you would like us to track, let us know.
Oh, one question, right? Can you guys track the overdose based on what the overdose is? Because it's not always
to tell.
Okay.
Because and that's why some of these things are unknowns, because we don't get the medical examiner's reports back.
Okay.
We do try to source that sometimes from the hospital if we're concerned about exposures. But in general terms, they don't provide that to us.
It would be good to have an understanding of like how many are like alcohol over, because people, alcoholism. Yeah, I was gonna say alcoholism is one of the biggest. When I was incarcerated in jail, the biggest problem was alcoholism. For sure. So that's even bigger than heroin. So
it is way bigger.
So for me, is being able to peel back that onion and understand the layers that we're dealing with here in the community. If it is mostly heroin, then that's what it is. If it's alcoholism, then we need to name it and say that that's what it is.
Yeah, from our perspective, again, it's anecdotal because I haven't tracked that yet, but I can tell you we respond probably 3 times more to alcohol-related incidences than drugs.
All right.
It's not even close.
See, that's something that it would be cool to track. Thank you again.
We'll see if we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep. Have a good night.
You too.
All right.
In a motion.
Make a motion that the item 4 be complied with.
Second that motion. All in favor?
All right. Motion to take up item 3.
Second the motion to take up item 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 3 was filed by myself and Councilor Tallman. Order that the mayor organize an advisory committee that will work in collaboration with Public Health Department and Public Safety Committee that will work on coordinating reentry services for those reentering societies, specifically the city of Holyoke. I don't believe the mayor is present. I'm not sure if Mr. Gonzalez is still present. No? Okay. So,
I'm here.
Oh, okay, great. I guess for me, the intention of filing the order is because of some of what we just spoke about, right? A lot of the issues of the vagrancies and the homelessness and substance abuse, people that are out there struggling, a lot of them are more or less in one shape or form being released back into society from somewhere. It's either incarceration, either a mental health facility, a substance abuse facility, a shelter, could be the military, whichever one it is. So for me, it's trying to find a way that we could come together with a committee to help devise a plan or a strategic plan as to how best to proceed in providing services to people that are constantly in that cycle of reentry and recidivism. So again, I mentioned in the prior conversation that I filed in order to try to develop an office of returning citizens, and within the office it would be comprised of different different departments that will be able to help assist with either substance abuse, housing navigation, workforce development, a variety of different pieces. But for this particular order is seeing if possibly the mayor, the public health department, and the public safety committee can come together in coordinating some form of advisory committee that can begin the conversations of what something like this would look like. And I know you're not the mayor, Sean, but you could probably start the conversation with
Sure. Grateful not to be the mayor. That's too much weight for me. But what I will say is, so I agree. You will get no argument from me, and I've had a similar conversation in front of council. You'll forgive me if I don't remember if it was this committee exactly, but earlier this year and in previous years, I have mentioned this homelessness and housing coordinator. It's a position that I created a job description. It's in the mayor's office now. I'm hoping that position will be or begin to be funded in the supplemental budget, that future funding will come from the opioid settlement, which was referenced earlier. So there are funds coming into the city from settlements that have been made nationally and at the state level, judgments against pharmaceutical companies that produced opioids or contributed to the opioid crisis. And so cities and towns are receiving funds, and I believe that position and additional positions like it are really critical to solving this sort of umbrella issue, as you've talked about, right? So it's rehousing people who have gotten treatment. It's working with people who are not yet in treatment. It's all of the in between. And from a personal level, yes, absolutely an advisory committee. But I think one of the things that I'm going to advocate for, and I've advocated to the mayor, and I'm hoping that this position that I mentioned is one of several, is that I think the city needs to have social workers and other people who have expertise in this field employed by the city. So, I run the health department, but while it says health department, and that's an awfully big coverage, we don't employ social workers in the health department. All of our job descriptions are union job descriptions, and we have a public health nurse who's excellent, but her background is medicine more than it is social work and recovery. And then all the other employees in the health department are either clerical staff or they're inspectors that are based in doing food inspections and housing inspections and sanitary code inspections. We don't have I think, especially in Holyoke, considering the historical issues we've had, I don't believe that there is a strong enough base of specialists, social workers and people who specialize in recovery and the kind of attention that folks in this community need to be set on the right path. And so I'm hoping that this opioid funding can be used to sort of expand that. And my personal opinion is that if we had people who were subject matter experts in the employ of the city, that would go a long way to making the advisory committee and decisions that we make more informed, and then we would have people around to implement those decisions that are made, if any.
No, I hear you. That makes a lot of sense too as well. Before I go on, do any other counselors have anything to add? No. Okay. So yeah, I agree in a sense with the avenue of trying to develop something that allows for the city to kind of take more of a initiative with regards to providing human services to some of the residents. And I filed the order around the returning citizens thing because I saw that in the city of Boston. Obviously, Boston is way bigger and they have a lot more funding, but they actually have an Office of Returning Citizens that provides services to people that are coming home from either any facility that is returning back to public. And in this office, they provide you with someone that's a caseworker, and you get on their caseload, and they manage like how you're navigating the systems. That is something that is maybe a little too extensive for the city of Holyoke, and we're not at that level capacity wise. But what we can do, because I do know from my own experience, is working in collaboration with the sheriff's department it's not after incarceration support services no more. It's called all-inclusive support services now, AISS in Springfield, where they have somewhat of a satellite space where they provide all of the services you just mentioned in one space. So in my mind, ideally it would be cool if we could have a location here where we partner with other partners, but all the services are being housed in one city space or city department. Doesn't necessarily mean that the city takes on the responsibility of staffing it with social workers. We partner with BHN or somebody, and they can staff it with social workers and a variety of other things. But like, the idea for me is flushing that out and bringing an advisory committee that could allow, or that could help us, right, in flushing that out and mapping out what that looks like. And I'm glad to hear that. It sounds like you would be in agreement with it. But yeah, thank you for your time too on that. Councilor Maldonado Velez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel like y'all are speaking my language. This sounds awesome. I think the office, the public safety line item, I think it just got funded $900. I think it was funded $900 the year before that. And I think there's sort of a missed opportunity. It's almost been like a symbol of like Holyoke as a city waiting for it to be funded because it's something that we need. Public safety a lot of times.
Is that your cat?
It is, sorry. but
he put his hand in there like, yo.
Public safety, a lot of times, for a long time, we've always just automatically police. And, Councilor Rivera, you said it earlier, like, there's a space for police to do the work that they need to do, but there's also, it's time for us to look at public safety greater than just law enforcement. There's way more that goes into it, whether it be social workers, whether it be, I know one of the conversations talking about housing navigator and opposite tenant protections, anything that really talks about the whole person. And yeah, so I just wanted to sort of show my support of whatever this advisory committee will be and look like, and hopefully we can work on it soon so that we can get there. I mean, we're just talking about the opioid crisis and overdoses and stuff. So I think these are all things that this office could possibly work with and deal with. So thank you, Sean, for coming down tonight.
Thank you, Councilor Maldonado Velez. Councilor Givner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if this can be, or if the intention is for this to kind of be part of I guess it would obviously be part of Board of Public Health, but I mean,
It would be an extension to it. I don't think Sean wants to manage. Go ahead, Sean.
we want to just give you every department.
Go ahead, Sean.
What I have said to the mayor is I believe very strongly that there needs to be a standalone office for, you know, if it's a position in a department, especially something that's, I think, this important, you know, that's something that can, with the, you know, one stroke of a pen can be defunded. It can be relegated to someone gets hired and maybe they're sort of middling at the position. I think there's too many variables there. If this is its own department, it can be robust, it can be filled out. It will be run by somebody whose background and their expertise. Certainly the Board of Health will be there to assist and build it up. But in my vision, right, which is just one man's, but you have a department in and of itself that is able to grow and sort of meet the diverse demands. So, you know, you have one, in my mind, you have this one person who's the homelessness and housing navigator that works on the streets to sort of get an understanding of who's out there and what they need, and you know, contribute to, you know, the by name list that is run by Springfield and some other communities where you maybe you don't have a case file, but you keep track of folks in your community, where they are. Are they in treatment? Do they have a place to go when they get back? You know, what are they struggling with? Do you have contacts with them? And you sort of flesh out ways to work with that community. And then, you know, if you have another person that's there that's doing placement or, you know, helping people, you know, once they get back, get to a more permanent place, you can continue to expand those. Because I feel that working with other organizations is certainly important, but I think what we're seeing right now, and I don't think I'm the only person seeing this, is that a lot of these partner organizations are they're strapped right now. You have the existing issues, and you have the migrant crisis, which thankfully has not taken a serious toll on Holyoke, but it is a growing concern statewide. And then you have lingering effects in the labor market post-COVID with people who work in the medical and mental health fields. And they're having a very difficult time staffing and retaining people. And I think leaning too much on outside organizations who may have their own goals is sort of what has got us here.
Okay, thank you. I entertain a motion to...
Motion that item 3 be complied with?
That's okay with me. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to take up items 5 and 6 as a package?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 5 was filed by Councilor Vacant, Puello, and Tolman. The item is orders that the local inspections of retail marijuana establishments for compliance with laws selling of retail similar to those of cigarettes and alcohol be completed in coordination with the Cannabis Commission. And item 6 was filed by Councilor Vacant and Puello. They're both filed the same day too. Order that the Cannabis Commission create a regulation that retail marijuana products be required to have a healthy safety warning. This is needed in light of studies showing significant medical emergencies among the children and adolescents as well as adults due to marijuana use. Councilor Vacant or Puello, if you guys would like the floor to address the orders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for item 5, it seems that we have robust local inspections relative to cigarettes, but that the compliance role has been left with the Cannabis Commission, but it's very unclear what, if any, compliance is actually happening in that industry. And so I think what we were looking for, as there have been in some other areas, if there is any collaboration that can take place in this regard, or maybe things have changed and maybe Sean knows more about it than we do. I mean, it was quite a while ago we filed this and a lot may have changed since then. Relative to item 6, it's my understanding that in the guidance from the Cannabis Commission, there is language about warnings on certain of the products. So I'm not sure if that's just a matter of making sure that the providers actually do have them marked, but I think I have found language that does stipulate that from the Cannabis Commission. So I think the biggest remaining question is for item 5 and the whole idea of how are we maintaining compliance now that we have more business in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vacant. Councilor Puello? Oh, he's not here. Okay. So yeah, Sean, if you're still present. Okay, because on my screen I can't see you. But yeah, this is, for me, I'll be honest with you, I feel like this is a fairly easy one, but I mean the compliance one, item 5, that one, I'm intrigued to figure out whether or not we're doing our own compliance things on a local level, and if we're not, maybe we could possibly find funding through some of the community impact fees to try to get that done. But I'll let Sean speak to that.
So the short answer is, as of today, no, the health department does not do any compliance inspections of marijuana establishments other than base code enforcement we would do with any other building, overgrown vegetation, graffiti, things of that nature. But we don't do any cannabis related enforcement. The other half of this is we were recently allotted $75,000 from the cannabis impact fees. And it's moving a little slower than I would have intended, but I am in the process of writing an RFP to explore this. And so I'll go into this a little further. Municipalities, be it either through the city council or boards of health, may implement local licensing processes and other regulations, providing they are not unreasonably impracticable. That's actually the language that the state uses, unreasonably impracticable. That's awfully vague, as I'm sure you can tell, and it doesn't really state the full structure of what that authority can be. And I think ultimately some town is going to pass regulations that are going to be stricter than the state intended, and then the courts will determine what exactly that line is. But for now, that phrase is where the line is. As to whether or not the Cannabis Control Commission is doing their inspections, that's difficult to tell. They don't report to local communities. If you've worked with them directly, they're not always the easiest to get a hold of, and they're dealing with some internal struggles right now. So they just recently suspended one of their senior most executives from the Cannabis Control Commission, who, when she was suspended, cited that the environment internally was so toxic that they weren't able to get our work done. So that's like a recent headline that came around. They're currently revising some of these cannabis laws that they have. They're trying to make the process for opening businesses a little less cumbersome and a little less expensive. And they're trying to address the diversity issues that they initially thought that they had under control. And maybe that hasn't yielded the fruit that they wanted with the diversity of communities applying for marijuana licenses and successfully attaining them. And they are also considering how they're going to approach the social consumption aspect. So there was some public hearings in September this month where they're doing some listening sessions, and they're trying to determine what priorities and communities are. And their intent, their stated intent and deadline is November 9th of this year to put out some of these amendments. And so I'm going to keep working on this RFP, but I'm also sort of waiting to see what the amendments are going to look like, and what changes they're going to make, if any, and then what the social consumption market is going to look like. And the intent of the RFP is that we would work with a consulting team to make sure that anything that the city puts together for regulations that would sort of codify our ability to do inspections and do enforcement doesn't open the city up to any liability. So we want to work with a company that's familiar with cannabis legislation and sort of the market, and put together something that's airtight so that one, you don't want to alienate the community that we're building here with the marijuana industry, and two, you don't want to pass regulations or ordinances that are short-sighted or are contradictory, or that there's some error in it that renders it moot. So that's the goal right now, is to get something drafted and out to bid, and then work to craft something functional.
Thank you. We don't want to get sued. That is the main thing we don't want to get, right? That's the worst thing that could happen.
That's my hope.
Yeah, Councilor Vacant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sometimes suits are the only resort available. Anyway, Sean, I want to thank you for your update on that, because I think it's very timely, even though we filed this order a long time ago, because we know these things do take a long time to unwind, especially when they're sort of paralyzed up at the Cannabis Commission. So I want to thank you for your thoughtful approach to this, and we look forward to getting more clarity on it, right? So your work is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of share the concerns with regards to the compliance if we don't know if the CCC is doing it. You know what I mean? Obviously, that is not your scope of practice, but if you could somehow find out when was the last time, if they can share that information with you, or if they're doing that, and share that with the council, that would be great. Because if they're not doing it at all, or if they haven't done it once since we opened any shops, like, that's a problem. Hold on, Councilor Maldonado Velez, and then I'll recommend. Oh, go ahead, Sean, if you have something to say.
Oh, I was just going to say that the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards, in association with the Franklin Regional Council of Governments, put out a really helpful sort of update in the middle of last month. And what they mentioned is that what cities and towns are seeing is that enforcement from the state is very intermittent, and that some communities, what they're understanding is that whomever is doing enforcement there is coming out and sort of being understanding and working with them, and maybe not as firm as that community would hope. And then in other communities, somebody is going out and they're really, laying the law down, maybe more stern than businesses are expecting. So it seems to be, there's not a lot of consistency. And so I don't believe that no inspections have been done, especially considering some of the issues we had at Trulieve. I think that sort of highlighted what needed to be done, but I'll see if I can get a report from them of what enforcement actions have been taken.
That's great. Thank you. Councilor Maldonado Velez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Shaw, for that information. I just wanted to, as a point of information, I know I've gone to a couple of dispensaries myself, and just because the order talks about cigarettes and alcohol, honestly, I feel like it's almost easier to get cigarettes and alcohol as under 21, because sometimes the liquor store may be like, oh, you look old enough and you're fine, versus when you go into a dispensary, for those that may not go, they scan your ID at the front door, and then they double check your ID once you're at the actual register. So there's actually 2 levels to being checked as far as to make sure that you're of legal age. From my experience, it's been happening. Of course, I think, like anything else, we should just double check to make sure it is happening consistently. And then as far as the health safety warnings, there was actually a video that came up on my social media today about a mom that's a marijuana user, and her having a conversation with her kids, just because, just an example, there's edibles and stuff that may look like a candy or gummy bears, but every package should have either like a warning sign or an exclamation point saying, this has THC. So it really does come down to education. I hope that, we not an abstinence only education, because we know that has not worked in the past, alcohol being the prime example of how abstinence only education does not work, or any other drugs that we've been talking about. But, just hopefully just proper use of it. And stop, sorry, the kitty's messing around right now. And yeah, all the packages, everything are marked from what I have from my experience. Of course, I'm one person out of many people, but I will say, based on Holyoke, I think they are doing right. But I am also in support of making sure that it does keep going and it's being enforced and people are being compliant. So thank you for the order put in, but I just wanted to, from my experience, it does seem like Holyoke is doing what they're supposed to be doing as far as thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Maldonado Velez. Councilor Givner, you still?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to mention that I've only seen, regarding packaging specifically, which I think would be really important to have warnings on packaging. I've only seen approved cannabis warning labels, but I've never seen any requirement for them. So I would definitely be curious about what exactly is required. Because even if we had a local inspector, I'm not really sure what they'd be looking for. I think we want there to be labels. I know that THC products have to say, this contains THC and it's, not for people under 21, but that's kind of the only packaging labels I've ever seen required. So, yeah, I think it's unfortunate that our Cannabis Control Commission is having some issues getting their laws and their standards and any changes they're making up to date. I think we all suffer because of that, because it's hard to hold people accountable and hold businesses accountable for things when it's hard to even know what the requirements are from month to month. So, yeah, I think we should all be following this. Thanks.
So, for the sake of this order, Sean, quick question, because it sounds like the order is asking, and Councilor Vacant, you can correct me if I'm interpreting this wrong, that is asking that the Cannabis Commission create a regulation that retail products be required to have a health safety warning. Can someone find us that regulation so that way we can see if the order is complied with? Would that be the law department? Or
I think this came up before.
I believe so too.
Determinations was that we're not able to have requirements of the Cannabis Control Commission. No. We could invite them in and ask, but I don't know that we're able to.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that we're able to require them to do anything. But I think the piece is I believe that they already have this policy. And if they already have this policy, then we can point to this policy that they already have instead of asking them to create something, because we know they're not going to create it because we asked them. But yeah, is there a way for us to discover if they have the policy already in place, which I'm assuming that they do because everybody's putting they're marketing their products. But if Mike could speak to that, I guess.
Mr. Chairman, is the question whether or not the city can enforce a regulation?
No. That's not the question. The question is whether or not the CCC already has this regulation, and if they do, can we have a copy of it so that the councilors can have a copy of the regulation to know that it exists already. So that way we're not...
For labeling?
Yeah.
The labeling regulation? Yeah. They do not.
They do not have a regulation.
Not as of yet.
Oh,
they are still doing the regulatory. They had 37 hours worth of hearings, of meetings last week to decide on the final draft of the regulation. So
then
that's coming up.
I think I'm with Councilor Vacant on this one. So Councilor Vacant, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So even though it says order, it's a request to the Cannabis Commission to create the regulation, because I had understood from Sean that that's their wheelhouse. So that if there would be a regulation, it would be coming from them, and we weren't in a position to create it here. Mm-hmm. So that was the intent of how I wrote it.
No, I get that piece. But I think since it sounds like they don't necessarily have a regulation in place yet, and it sounds like they might be coming up with one or trying to devise one throughout the process, I think I'm in agreement with you with this order, and I am in the feeling of tabling it until we actually find out what the regulations are that come from the state. That sounds fair. If that's what if you're okay with that.
Yes, thank you.
No worries. Councilor Givner, I'd entertain a motion to table item 6.
What about 5?
And 5, I believe.
Motion to table both items. Motion that item 5 be complied with.
Second.
And motion to table item 6 for follow-up.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Motion to take up item 7.
Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 7 was filed by Councilor Givner. Order that in the interest of public safety that a traffic safety pledge be created in good faith, and that this pledge be taken by all city employees and officials. All city employees and officials should be expected to model righteous behavior by adhering to speed limits and following all traffic laws, especially in caps, when using city vehicles in caps. How can we expect our community to respect these laws if city employees are blatantly disregarding them in quotations? So, Councilor Givner, since you filed the order, I will give you the floor to kind of elaborate on this, and there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I filed this order after there were a couple of incidents that involved pedestrians. Also, there was an unfortunate incident where a minor was hit by a city vehicle while waiting for a school bus. So, and I'm not pointing blame with this order. I just thought it would be a great idea to create a traffic pledge that people can take, at will, and it would just basically allow people to pledge that they're going to follow the traffic laws, that they're going to be mindful, that they're going to respect the fact that they're driving a city vehicle, that they're city employees that are paid by taxpayers and should therefore respect the rules of our city. So this is a kind of a warm and fuzzy order, but I think it's still very important. I got this idea from a number of other pledges that you can take in good faith that basically say, hey, I'm going to model this behavior. I'm going to support these kind of issues. I'm going to, support traffic calming measures, etc., in our city. So I put together a list of items that could be included. I think this is something that could be worked on in collaboration with others. I would welcome feedback or things to be added. But at this point, what I have, and I did submit this afternoon, so I'm sorry if everyone didn't get it, but it was added to our packet. I have that here are some ideas for the pledge, and that I hope this generates healthy discussion and that we can add several well-intended items. Ideally, this pledge is intended to create awareness and can be agreed to by email and will be a campaign that includes, and I took the Holyoke Traffic Safety Pledge sticker or flyer of some sort for acknowledgement, and that could be posted to social media and shared. And it could read something like this: as a city employee and or public official, it is my great pleasure to take this good faith pledge in an effort to create accountability and lead by example. As I drive in and around Holyoke in a city vehicle or my own, I hereby pledge to follow our city's 25-mile-per-hour speed limit, fully stop at all stop signs, adhere to all school zone speed limits, be especially mindful during school start and end times as children are precious and deserve to be kept safe, observe our state laws and stop for all pedestrians and crosswalks, wear a seatbelt at all times as required by state law, be mindful and give space to bicyclists, practice patience and give myself time during commutes, and park only in designated parking areas. I'm sure there are many things that could be added to this, but again, it's in good faith. It would not be a requirement. But I think when people read these things and take this pledge, it's just something that helps you keep in mind that you're part of a community and that you're here to serve your community and take part in your community. We're all responsible for each other and our well-being, and yeah, I think this is important, especially considering how many accidents and pedestrian accidents we have and bicyclist accidents and speeding problems we have in our city. So I hope that others will be interested in taking this pledge, because I think it's a really fun idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Givner. I appreciate all of your traffic orders. I really do, every time. Any other councilors here that would like to comment? Oh, we got Kelly here. Kelly's not a counselor, but we would like to hear from the HR department.
Hi, I was invited, so I thought maybe
it makes sense that you're invited, because it's something that is kind of like a requirement, not a requirement, but we're trying to make it, I guess. It sounds like.
Yeah, I'm happy.
In good faith.
Input. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I would add texting or, using a phone handheld device or something like that to it. I think it is a great effort. Like all warm and fuzzy things, I think we'll get some pushback because people will be worried about, am I going to get disciplined if I make the pledge and I get a speeding ticket or things along those lines, or even a parking ticket. But I don't think it at all will hurt.
Just be shamed down High Street. Yeah. Shame. Shame. Nah, just playing.
You'll get your sticker revoked, right? Or your pin revoked. But I do 100% support it, but definitely add the cell phone in some capacity.
So I guess before I recognize Councilor Maldonado Velez, I think what would it take to make it a reality, right? Not just drafting the language, but like I think trying to like think of how it's gonna actually be rolled out. But go ahead before I recognize Councilor Maldonado Velez.
Yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think it would have to be accepted by the council, and then some funding would have to be identified for stickers or pins. My office could help, send the pledges to be signed, or however we want to acknowledge people pledging to, my office can support that. Not the funding for the stickers. I have no money. If you've seen my budget, I don't have no money.
And take it out of the 150th budget. No,
150th pledge for safety. I just want to reiterate that it would not be a requirement. It's not a part of, it wouldn't obviously be a part of your employment, or, you couldn't be reprimanded for breaking the pledge. It's a personal thing that people could take, so people don't have to agree to it, but I think a lot of people would be willing just to show, that they do want to be accountable members in their community.
Thank you. Councilor Maldonado Velez, I'm sorry for procrastinating on you.
No, you're good. This is a good discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to echo what Kelly just said. That was my thought when going through the list, like definitely handheld devices, putting that item somewhere on there. And I also want to thank Councilor Givner for bringing this. I know like we were just laughing and talking about shame and whatnot, and sometimes it's funny, but it can be very serious issues. I know we just had a on Cabot and South Summer, was it? And right next to Capri, right down there, and talk about the crosswalk on B Street. Like there are serious accidents that are happening, and even myself, I know I drive an EV, and like sometimes you don't even realize how fast you're going. Even just modern cars nowadays, you don't even realize how fast you're going before you're like, oh crap, I'm going really fast right now. So I have caught myself multiple times, particularly in the last 2 years, being in the council with Councilor Givner, really being mindful, like, oh crap, I'm going a little too fast and blowing myself down. So I do want to say thank you for that, and to the point around like the pledge, I think it should be something just in good faith. I don't think anyone should be reprimanded per se, but at the end of the day, if we have something like no devices, you should not be using a device while you're driving, and then we have police or DPW or whoever using a phone while they're driving, that what example is that for our people? So thank for the pledge. I think the easiest rollout would definitely be like a little social media campaign, imagining like a sticker that you put on your profile picture, like I took this traffic the city. It's any money, I don't think, but yeah, I'm definitely on board on this. Then should definitely add the handheld device. Thank you.
Thank you for those suggestions and the support too as well. Yeah, I think this is awesome, Councilor Givner. Thank you for filing this order. Really appreciate it, and I can't wait to take the pledge. Entertain a motion.
Well, so would we need to send it, like, I should probably finish drafting it.
I was going to say that.
Whatever's added, so if anyone would like to add something to it, I would say maybe email me. I'll put up a post to see if anyone else has input that we should include. I'll be in touch with Kelly and see if she has info that should be included. And then maybe we can accept it. You know, hopefully it would be accepted at the next council meeting and we could go forward.
So, real quick, yes, I believe you should work in collaboration with Kelly just to make sure things align, or if there's any HR issues, and I'm sure there isn't, but just in case she can catch them. I think.
So maybe we'll table it so I can work on the language and we can approve it and then send it next time.
The other thing I wanted to see is just wanted to make sure that the law department saw the wording too, just in case. I mean, just,
you don't want to get
we have people that get paid for this, so it kind of makes sense for their eyes to kind of just run the gamut. So is that
Mr.
okay?
Chairman?
Go ahead. I was going to say, is that okay, Mr. Bissonnette?
Do we even need to do
Well,
that?
it's fine with me. I just want to caution you that we may hear from the labor unions saying that this is a change in the conditions of employment and has to be bargained for.
They'll be okay.
So I just, be aware of that. As long as it's voluntary, it may not be much of an issue, but we may need to discuss and bargain this.
Yeah. So ideally, from what I'm understanding, this is based on an act of good faith. There's no I don't know.
You can't be reprimanded.
You can't be reprimanded. We're not asking you if you have to do it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. It's an act of good faith. If you feel like you want to be a citizen that is engaging within the community and trying to give back via this narrative for us in the community, then we appreciate it. If you can't, if it's too much, I respect that too. Hey, this is a space for everybody to do as you please, right? Councilor Maldonado Velez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to say, like, some of the things on here, like, fully stop at all stop signs, follow our city's 25 miles per hour. Like, these are also things that you don't need to take a pledge for. Like, that's the law. Like,
it is the law, right?
So, like, this literally comes down to it just being a simple, like, almost like, am I going to follow the law? And I don't think anyone, I mean, I understand Attorney Bissonnette, like, if it does come into, like, sort of conditions. But I think it's more, I mean, for me, I'm seeing it more, I can't even think of the word, but more of like I don't want to say not performative. What is the word I'm looking for? Anyways, like, just something like to say, hey, I agree with this. I agree that we need to be safer in our streets. I understand that we sometimes may not follow it 100%, but I'm going to be more mindful of the laws that are already laid out there.
Aspirational.
Symbolic, I guess.
Aspirational.
So yeah, because anything that's on here, literally, absurd state law, like, these are our laws. Like, we, so I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Maldonado Velez, and thank you, Mr. Bissonnette, for addressing that too, and bringing that up, because that does make sense to always keep that aware. Yeah, I would say, include that, and again, when you finish, 100% voluntary, right? So I would say, once we finish the language, send it. Table it for now. I would say still send it to Mike, just in case.
Okay.
So thank you again, Mr. Bissonnette. Thank you, Jose, for the suggestion. And I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to table item 7 for rewording.
Second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to take up item 8.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 8, order that an RFP be created to study a community responder model type program that is outside of the police department but works in collaboration with the department as one of several contributing partners. Myself, Councilor Givner, and Councilor Maldonado Velez filed this order. This order has been tabled 3 times: 11/19, March 6th of 23, and April 19th of the 23rd. And I believe present with us is Chief Pratt for this particular order, or no? Is it a different one?
He's there.
Yeah, I see him there. Thank you, Jeff. Chief, in case you didn't hear me. There you go.
I'm here. I heard you. I didn't, to be honest with you, I didn't even know if this is why I was here, but I know I was here.
No. So that I have to admit, this item is only a piece of it is police, right? So you can only speak on a certain aspect of it. The other piece actually comes from the mayor's office. So if you don't add what you can add if you want to, because I'm sure you've probably added a couple other times, because we've met about 3 times about this. If you have something to add with regards to this, please feel free to do so. If you feel like you've already added a multiple different times, I understand that too as well.
Okay, yeah, whatever you need, I'm here.
All right then. So I think, Jose, would you like to address the order a little further, if anything?
Thank you. I know. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we've taken this up a couple of times. So thank you, Chief Pratt, for coming down. I know last time we took it up was April, so I'm just interested to know if there's been any. I know there has been sort of a shift within the department. Some officers doing a community response, and I'm just interested to know, like, in the last couple of months, there's been any, sort of training, or if there's any. I don't know what has happened in the last couple of months towards that, because the order itself is to create something that is separate from the police, but I do understand that the police have been working within this model for a little bit as well. So I'm interested to know if there's been any sort of like new developments or anything from the last couple of months. And I know you just said that you didn't know this was the order, so like if you don't have anything funny right now, you can follow up with anything. But yeah, this is my thought right now with this.
Yeah, I mean, I can comment a little. It's, ours is more of a co-response, as you know, and this order is calling for outside of that or another entity. We just continue our work, our collaboration, not only with, mental health and opioid addiction. We have partnership with the sheriff who helps as well. Do as much outreach as we can. The resources we have, the grants funded, the Ray Street office is renewed, so we'll be there. We just received a new grant, I think we're probably all aware of, which is going to extend the officer working there for another 3 years. So going strong, very happy. I will, as I was sitting here waiting tonight, I happen to be looking at a post I got, and just for the community-based model, just keep in mind, I just got this today, that 5 mass police officers were injured apprehending a knife-wielding suspect with mental issues. So, it's really tricky stuff. And maybe it was I know maybe it's the police presence that created that. It appears from what I read, it's an article. It's not local here. It was down near Taunton, and one of the officers was hurt pretty bad with a knife wound, and actually the chief of police himself was involved. So, it's just a concern that I have as a police officer, as the chief, that if we were to create, I like the way we're doing this. I like that we're having discussions and trying to figure it all out, and not just like rushing something out there, because I think that there's always the possibility of these type of incidents, and not that it's okay for police officers to be stabbed, but police officers also have tools and things to do and ultimately we're able to restrain this person before they hurt anyone else. So I do fear a little bit. I do like the co-response model in the sense that there is an officer present. I like that the wording of this says you know, in collaboration, separate but in collaboration, because I think we're always going to have these types of calls, right, that, you know, definitely rise to another level very quickly. And I worry about individuals, whether it be counselors or citizens, you know, involved in this without, you know, the help of the police department. So, you know, that's if I have a concern, that's it. And I just like that, you know, we're kind of really doing our due diligence, going slow, figuring it all out, looking at other models, and before we just rush something out there on the street.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's unfortunate that incident happened. Like a variety of other ones. I think the one point that I would add with regards to the counselors and people, human service professionals, more or less, they actually work with the population and the demographic on a regular basis. Like, they kind of have to do house calls sometimes. Sometimes they're working with the people in their homes. So it's not a one-off. I guess I would say is the concern should be on a regular basis when they're entering the homes of some of these mental health people too. My wife was a social worker that did visit people's homes, and she was never carrying when she would go into. They actually can't. Like, that is part of their job. They can't weaponize or carry a weapon to protect themselves when they go into these homes or they go into these spaces to work with people that are suffering from mental health issues. They're actually trained in trying to navigate that situation with words versus actually enforcement and weapons. But like you said, it's good that we're working together to try to build something out and collaborate. I think for us with the community responder model, what we're looking for is people that are walking the streets, right? What you guys have going on Ray Street is pretty interesting, and it's doing its due diligence, but it's separate from people walking down the streets and getting to know the people in the community that are facing the everyday issues. These people will build, hopefully, ideally, will be able to build relationships with people that can then, you know what I mean, resource them out versus, and it's not an adversarial relationship where there's an authoritative piece going on other than the fact that they work for the city. And there's different levels to that too as well. But I see that Councilor Maldonado Velez has his hand held. So go ahead, Jose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Agree with what you just said. I know I am working at the Victim Services Program that I manage. I have worked with, I want to say, Officer Ontario. Is he the one? I believe he's one of the Ray Street officers. So I do know, like, they, so I've heard a little bit of what they're doing. But I think too, it's almost like full circle, this whole meeting, just because I know Sean from the Board of Health earlier was talking about having sort of an office with social workers and whatnot. So I think your sort of worries are valid. I think that's a worry for many people when they think community response model. It doesn't mean automatically there's no police, but that should not be the initial response. You know, I have seen moments on Main Street where police have diffused situations with a mental health crisis, and it has not gotten violent, and it's worked. Did it have to be the police? And I don't know the answer. Maybe it wouldn't have been the same if it wasn't police or not, but I think this is why we're having these conversations. I think there's a lot of different layers within our community. You know, and as I'm talking about community, it helps to have social workers that are part of the community, that know the community, know the people. And we just got a report earlier about, you know, those going through substance abuse that may not be from our community, right? So even if they're coming in here now, they're strangers. And so there's many different layers. And I think this is part of the conversation that we're having. And I think it's guaranteed. I think we're all going towards the same goal here. We're getting to the same place. And I hear the worry, but I think it can be done. I see it happening right now within the partly with what's happening on Ray Street, and I think we can just even expand more on that it's not just at Ray Street. This is something that's happening throughout the whole city type thing, where people know these are the workers that are helping and whatnot. But to your point, yeah, I think this is why we're having this discussion. This is, you know, we're about to go a year into this community responder model. I know there's other orders on other offices that we really want to create around prevention and making sure that we're protecting our people and keeping them safe. So I also appreciate the fact that we're getting all different angles here to make sure that when this eventually does get to become a thing, that we're doing the best that we can. The order itself is to create an RFP. So it also shouldn't just lay on us. There are other responder models that have been happening across the country. So I think the goal here is to also get other people, get the what's working in other communities so that we can also bring that here. Because I know a lot of us, the more times that we've been discussing this has been kept within us. So I'm going to try to see if we, next time we bring it up, Councilor Rivera possibly bring, I know, very different community. Northampton is a very different community. Amherst is a very different community, but I know those are the two local ones that do have a community responder model. Maybe have a representative to come down and talk to us about what they're doing differently up there too. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Maldonado Velez. Just real quick before I recognize you, Councilor Givner, I saw Chief Pratt. Chief Pratt had his hand raised too. So before you had addressed, so I want to allow Chief Pratt, I was going to say Scott, Chief Pratt, the space.
So I just wanted to add, just another consideration that, as we build this out and we talk about, people that are, the professionals in that field in social work, and that those agencies, to my knowledge, are also struggling to fill jobs as well. So, it might not be as easy as just creating and saying, oh, let's hire these people and work for the city and get them out there, because I know, some of the things I hear in my travels is, especially in facilities, and, you can have all the beds, but if you don't have the people to work there, what are the beds? What good are the beds? You know what I mean? So just keep that in mind, that I know that, like, some of the, agencies that, we've collaborated with talk to us about their struggles to find people to work. So I'm not saying we will, we may not, but we may encounter some of those same struggles with this new.
That is totally, I totally hear where you're coming from. I think that would be expected. I think with regards to any, because even in my organization where I'm working at, we hired 2 different directors of programming, and they didn't accept a job the day before they started. Like it's been happening in every different field across the country. But so one thing that I believe in, and this is mostly because of school, even though I'm a late schooler, right? I'm still going to school and I'm about to be 40. Ideally is planning strategically for something, even if you don't do it. Right, like even if we don't do it, still planning strategically for it in the case that we do decide to do it, or for some odd reason ARPA comes around again, right? You got a chance to put something forward when you have the plan already in place. If we don't have the plan in place, then we'd have to build it out and go through the process, and then we'd be where we are now. So the consideration that you mentioned is really important, and it does make sense. I hear you on that one. Councilor Givner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to add that I think that a truly collaborative model can work for Holyoke, and I'm happy we're having these discussions. Like Councilor Maldonado Velez mentioned, Northampton and Amherst are nothing like Holyoke, but they do have programs that we could, take bits and pieces from. And I think if we do our research and look at programs nationwide, there's a lot of data that's starting to be available, and I'm sure we could figure out things where we can choose aspects of programs that work for our community and with our police department, because I think that's really important in Holyoke. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Givner. And then I guess I'll echo the sentiment that the communities are severely different. Just saying. But the fact that they have a foundation in place, it could help with us starting somewhere. But whatever final product, if we do finish this, comes out, it's not going to look anything like either of theirs. I don't think they deal with the same problems we deal with, and I think the chief could second that. Anybody else have any other questions or anything else to point out? Chief, again, thank you for your time. Really appreciate you making the time and sitting here through the meeting. I would have skipped you ahead, but I had a couple other people that were actually in person that I kind of had to address.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, motion to table item 8 for further discussion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. And motion to take up item 9.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 9 was filed by Councilor Bartley. Oh, wow. I hope Sean is still here. I feel bad. I didn't even... The DPW and the mayor locate public spaces where trash and recycling receptacles can be placed and maintained. This should start off as a pilot program, and it will require, this is not actually Sean, will require funding and management to ensure the debris recycling bins are maintained, but hopefully will be a success and hopefully can expand in its scope. Yeah, I think this was for Carl. I don't think Carl's present, and I believe Mr. Bartley is not present as well because I do not see him online. So I am okay with tabling it for a 4th time as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know Councilor Bartley couldn't attend tonight, but I think he saw this as just a pretty straightforward order, and I think it sort of goes hand in hand with what our mayor's doing with the rollout of the new bins, and just thinking that if there's certain trouble areas and DPW can identify them once the rollout happens, because I think right now there's too much going on, but I think it was simply that.
Yeah, no,
If
I hear. Yeah, that was the gist that I was getting, but I don't necessarily see anyone here to be able to speak to it.
Right.
So thank you for that, though. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Sure. The other piece, because I think this is a pretty good order. I think though there is somewhat of a recycling committee, I think, already in place. And I think there are conversations already happening. Myself and Councilor Bartley before sat on a committee that was working with PVPC, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, that they did a trash study. And in the process, they exchanged a bunch of different ideas from a bunch of different committee members. Although the trash bins were purchased during the era of Mayor Terry Murphy, it was highly supported throughout that study and the PVPC study. So that's why the trash bins were already purchased, but we're rolling it out a certain way, and we're trying to follow up with that rollout. You're correct in saying that some of this can be bundled up with the recycling stuff. But I believe that there's a separate committee focusing on that particular piece. Councilor Jose Maldonado Velez. You're muted.
Boom. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I lost my train of thought. This program, this idea, this order is great. I think I've heard from homeowners that they would be willing to sort of host a trash can in front of their property. I've heard from business owners that have said the same thing. So I think there is definitely a want from the community as a whole to have some sort of public trash receptacles. So I don't know what the plan is with this order in particular, but we definitely would love to have a conversation with DPW, with Carl from DPW and the mayor to see what can happen. I know the recycling committee just came together as well. But for example, we walked the parade, well, Councilor Gibner and we walked the parade in Springfield the other day, and you see the difference between, and not to crap on Springfield because I don't live in Springfield, but when you start off in the north end, you notice there's no trash receptacles, and there's definitely more trash on the streets. And then as you get more towards downtown, more towards walking towards Mass Mutual, there's more trash receptacles, meaning there's less trash on the streets. And you see the same thing here in our city, in areas that there may be a trash, like the trash is not on the ground. So I don't know what The problem is, I don't fully understand why we can't get some sort of public receptacles. Trash, I know it comes down to maintenance, and maybe, we don't have the DPW manpower, but if homeowners and business owners are willing to step up and take care of the trash, and I don't see why we can't do something about it. I know in front of Nueva Esperanza, there's a trash can there, and it's required for Nueva to do it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But either way, I think that we should try something. Just because I know even in Holyoke in particular, when we were doing the mural tours on our main street, I remember I was drinking, I don't know, a soda or something, and there was nowhere to put it. So I had to hold on to it. And I kept holding on to it, but other people, for whatever reason, they would just throw it on the ground, right? So just one, education around it, but two, if the business owners and homeowners are willing to step up and help out with this, and I think it's something that we should definitely try in our community. Thank you.
Councilor Givner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention that I do think business owners should have to host trash cans because they're creating, especially those businesses that create trash. I do think it's as much as I like the intention of private homeowners to host a trash can, I really just don't think it's their responsibility to deal with that, and I don't think they should be expected to deal with that. I think part of the problem that's been is that the open trash cans end up full because people take their household trash or their giant bags of whatever and throw them in there. I think this is a problem that could be solved, with if you're walking around and you have a can of soda and you put it in a trash can that seals or that closes kind of like a mailbox, you can't fit a bag of trash in there, So I think maybe if we could rethink the type of trash cans that we do use in the city, that it might be worth rolling out trash bins. I mean, we definitely need public trash cans. That's not, there's no argument against that at all. But I think the way we've had them in the past, where they're just like an open free for all, has been a problem in some communities. So if we had something that closed all the way, that the DPW knew that when they go there, they just open the back, empty out a bag, and keep it moving, it might be, it might be an easier sell to that department.
Thank you, Councilor Gibb. I think one of the major issues too, as well, is that staffing, having the manpower to go ahead and change the trash bag. It may seem as something that's really not that much of an issue, but for them, it's a huge issue with regards to how they're doing their day-to-day business. I don't think they're prepared to take on a responsibility. So this would have to be something that's kind of thought about, built out, strategized, how to implement it. Because if we could put trash barriers all we want. If they're not going to go change the bags or collect the refuge, then it just defeats the purpose across the board. So although I agree with the barrels and the recycle bins being out there and making sure that we put something out there that is protected, I got to make sure that we actually have the manpower and the capacity to kind of see it through. Because if not, then it just becomes another project that we start and we might not see it through. Councilor Maldonado Velez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Definitely hear both of you. It shouldn't be on the homeowners, but as we transition to a fully funded city and having the full manpower, I do believe if I just look at the corner of where my grandparents used to live, there was a trash can there that my grandparents asked the city 10 years ago to put up because there was so much trash. That extra step, now it's different because we have the barrels and, things have shifted, but, that's could have been unloaded once a week if the homeowner decided, hey, I am down, I'm willing to do this, right? So yeah, it's definitely, I don't think it should be the homeowner's responsibility, but as we're working towards that, the fully funded city, then, and homeowners are willing to step up, then, hey, yeah, let's put a trash can, whatever that may look like, in your corners to make sure that your corner is being kept clean. Because there are homeowners that really clean. Yeah, I know on the corner, of Appleton and Pine, they actually moved up to Councilor Bacon's ward, Ward 5. When we used to live there, the guy there used to literally take his trash can, take his broom and stick and like clean up the whole block up and down, right? And then where did he throw the trash? You have to go inside to throw it. And like you can just throw it right there and then just take it out once a week. Like those are the little things that we can implement or start working at. You know, it's a pilot. Same thing with the business owners. Like, I mean, we can require it, or we can also just say, hey, which businesses want a trash can in front of your business? And if they're willing to step up, then yeah, I don't see why we can't have them have trash cans there. But yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this particular order? We will be tabling it for not the lack thereof, but because Councilor Bartley could not make it, and I believe the DPW superintendent possibly couldn't make it as well.
Motion to table item 9.
Second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What's the next motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I second that motion. All in favor? Thank you guys for being present with us, for those of you that are online, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Marty, thanks.